Hello, and welcome to The Horrible Idea, a podcast about horror movies.
I'm Stephanie, and I'm afraid of scary movies.
I'm Jack, and I ate noodles while that guy's face melted off.
So this episode, we're talking about 1982's Poltergeist, directed by Tobe Hooper and co-written and co-produced and allegedly shadow directed by Steven Spielberg.
That's right. The director of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre delivers with a full-on Ablin Entertainment joint. Very amazing stories, E.T.-like film.
Yeah, it actually came out or was filmed the same year as E.T., which is part of the, we can get to it later, but part of the whole, rumor mill around who really directed it. So some movie facts. This was released on June 4th, 1982. Director, as we said, Tobe Hooper. There's a story by credit for Steven Spielberg, and the screenplay is Steven Spielberg, Michael Grace, and Mark Victor.
Yeah, the budget was $10.7 million, and the box office was $121.7 million.
Damn. Yeah, I read that this was actually the 8th highest grossing film of the year, and the number one for horror, which I suppose isn't too surprising.
Yeah, and generally good ratings. 7.3 from IMDb, 85 for Rotten Tomatoes, and 79 for Rotten Tomatoes audience score, which I even think maybe is a little low.
Yeah, the audience versus critic scores are pretty interesting. I think, my theory from last episode that I think is maybe getting debunked here is that for horror movies, the audience score is higher than the critic score, but not so in this case.
Yeah, I think the artsier a horror film is, sometimes it can divide a little bit, but yeah. So let's get into this. Have you, Stephanie, ever seen a ghost?
I have not. I'm actually one of those people that doesn't believe in ghosts. So in the horror movie of my life, I would probably be the first one to get killed by a ghost.
In the horror movie of my life, I would be the ghost. Now, I don't think I've ever seen a ghost, but I have at least twice told women that I've seen a ghost in order to sleep with them.
Wow.
How scary have you heard of this movie? Had you had like some idea of it?
Yes, I've heard of it. I didn't really know too much. Again, as is the case, I think for a lot of horror movies, and what will happen going forward is there are elements in this that I thought were in other movies or that I knew about but didn't know it was in this movie. Like I had seen the TV with the creepy little girl, and I had heard they're here, but that's about it as far as what I knew about it. Fear factor, I did think it was going to be a little scarier than it was, but I still had a few significant jumps, which we can get to later. What about you? Did you watch this as a kid? Were you scared then?
I definitely watched this as a kid, and I was very scared as a kid. Unlike Friday the 13th, which I watched as a kid and I was not scared of at all. I remember being pretty freaked out about this, especially the clown and the swimming pool scene at the end.
Oh yeah.
And a couple of other things. Yeah, no, it was nice coming back to it because I wasn't really scared of it this time. And I just sort of like enjoyed it. It was like a lot of tension and various things that they were doing.
Right.
Do you go to the haunted house rides, the haunted house experience?
So I've done both. As a kid, I definitely went to those. I went to the haunted house at Disney World, which is one of my favorites. I mean, I was a little kid. Yeah. I was a little kid, so it was actually scary to me. But my favorite thing was there's one part of the ride where you're in like a little chair, a two-seater chair, and at one point in the ride, your chair like swivels and you're facing like a wall, or it's supposed to be a mirror, and there's a ghost sat in between you and the other person in the mirror. And just as a kid, I thought that was the coolest thing. But then I did do one of those um, haunted house experience things in Manhattan last year, um, which was actually my idea. I suggested it to my coworkers, even though I was by a big margin the most scared person there. And it was one of those ones where they jump out and come really close to you, and they don't touch you, but it was scary. And there's certain parts where it's pitch black, and I was walking, you kind of walk in a line with your group through the whole thing. And
Like an IKEA.
yeah, and I was clutching my friend Carrie. I was clutching her backpack and like burying my face in it most of the time. And at one point, my friend Dave, who was in line behind me, kind of reached out past my shoulder to be like, "Oh, I know that guy." And I jumped about like 5 feet in the air. So again, I'm so scared of these things, and yet I am putting myself in the line of fire, but I'm doing it for the content.
You are. You want to
Um,
grow, but yeah, I think it's cool. Um, I'm scared to go on those things because like I'm afraid I'm gonna punch someone who jumps out at me, and I
yeah.
wonder if that's like a big problem. So, besides the movie, had you heard about the Poltergeist curse?
Not that I can recall. It's possible that it's something that was sort of like in 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 my circle of awareness, but no, I did not know the details of this.
Well, this was a big thing. I remember. So, what year? This 82.
Yeah.
So I was 6. So it probably was repeated, or there were like bigger sort of news articles about it later on. But I remember watching TV like a sort of extra or ET where they talked about this curse and how Dominique Dunn, I think, first was murdered by her ex-boyfriend, and I think it just happened not that long after the movie came out. And then I don't think I saw them in the theater, but I definitely remember the ads for Poltergeist 2, because it was very scary in a very different way. It has like a totally different sort of plot. But then that Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann, died while I think while making or a little after making Poltergeist 3, some
Mm,
sort of like rare stomach virus that no one caught in time, and then she just like died.
yeah.
And then I think a couple of other people, like that guy who leans in and tastes her sauce or soup, the guy who leans in the window.
Ludo? I think his name is
Yeah,
Ludo.
I think
I love that guy.
he was killed or something as well. So yeah, it was just this curse.
Yeah. No, that's I mean, so I did since watching the movie, I did look up, and apparently there is a rumor that the curse um, can be traced back to the fact that the prop master used real skeletons in the pool scene, allegedly.
Ooh,
Allegedly.
right.
um, which would be, there were a lot of skeletons at the end there.
There were. And I think it's like a popular thing, a popular misconception that the house is buried on Indian burial ground, which I remember that being true as well, as he says at the
Well,
end.
yeah,
You moved the
the
tombstones, but you didn't move the bodies.
yeah, well, and in that very, picturesque scene on that grassy hill, the corporate guy explains it's not like it's some sacred burial ground. Uh,
Right. It's
You
just a
know, they're
regular
just,
burial ground.
I think he says they're just people.
They're just people, man.
So,
It's a very humanist way of looking at it. All right. Do you want to give the brief summary of this film?
yes. So, the Freeling family experiences supernatural phenomena in their new home. Soon, their youngest daughter, Carol Ann, disappears, and the family recruits a team of parapsychologists to help save their daughter from the haunted house.
These guys were not the Ghostbusters.
No, they. It was actually kind of funny when they were, first coming over and they're kind of explaining their bona fides. And I think at one point, was it Ryan? Was the cameraman? I think yeah, Ryan. So at one point, the cameraman Ryan explains, "Oh yeah, well we saw one last time, and I think it was." He said something moved across the floor. It took
Yeah, it
like
was
seven
a
hours or something.
Matchbox car. It was a Matchbox
Yes,
car that
Matchbox
slowly
car.
moved across the room, and it wasn't visible to the naked eye,
Yeah.
obviously.
He had to do he had to do a time lapse photography, and then they're in this house where they're literally like racing their daughter across the floor with a football helmet on, which I thought was a little bit,
Yeah,
questionable, but
yeah, no. What after the whole chair thing happened, that's when in that is sort of the origin to me of like people who should have left the house immediately. Who are like, "Oh, that's crazy. Wow."
yeah. But by that time that they're like watching their daughter like zip across the floor, let's leave.
Right.
Let's get out of here.
Well, let me go over the cast of characters a little bit first. Steve Freeling, the dad, Greg T. Nelson with a
Coach.
coach, which is a great performance. I loved him in this. It was a
His the makeup department is doing a lot of work for him because he looks like shit as the
yeah.
movie goes on.
Well, the whole that's one of the things I liked about the whole movie is like they just moved into this house, but it's already sort of lived in looking, and there's like piles of stuff everywhere. And that first scene where like the dog is like eating sandwiches out of everyone's bed because they all have food all over the place.
Yes.
It's just like very 80s, very like
I
messy.
did I did have to look up immediately when this movie started and I saw the dog who's E-Box.
E-Buzz.
E-Buzz. I saw the dog and I said, "Oh shit, I didn't look up doesthedogdie.com."
Not only
And
does the dog live, he lives
yeah.
through all three movies.
Yes, he is fine. Although there is the death of a parakeet.
It's
So,
true.
RIP.
And a
Uh,
fish.
but I will say, so as much as Craig T. Nelson kind of, they made him look pretty haggard by the end. Jo Beth Williams, who played Diane Freeling, looks great through the
She
whole
did.
thing. Yeah,
It's a lot of
she's
pant,
thriving.
a lot of panty shots in this film. Weird.
Yes, it's
Um,
very horny.
which brings us to the very strange 16-year-old daughter, Dana, who, right out of the gate gets like catcalled by the construction workers.
Yeah.
And and the mother kind of sees and just like, oh, my girl, she
Well,
sticks up for herself.
yeah, because she does the like it's like a partial Macarena,
Yeah, yeah.
and then once she does that, her mom is like, oh, she could take care of herself. But I think the guy Ludo, who's um, foraging from their kitchen through the window, is one of the guys hitting on her,
Yeah.
and the mom's on a first name basis with this guy, and yet he's like, hey, sweet mama.
A lot of character actors in this whole like I recognize the other construction worker who's a Native American guy. He was definitely in Predator, and then he was in I think 48 Hours, a lot of 80s movies I recognize him from. Robbie Freeling, who is just really kind of the scaredest character.
Yes, well, you know, the creepy blonde child is like kind of preternaturally unafraid of anything.
Right. But Robbie at one point is scared of like three things happening at once. He's scared of the clown, he's scared of the tree outside, and he's scared of the storm, which I've read
Yes.
are all fears that um, Steven Spielberg had when he was a kid.
Right. Well, there's the clown is completely understandable. Like, who got that for him? And
And why did he keep it?
well, maybe his like grandma got it for him, and his parents told him like, you can't get rid of that. Grandma got that for you, and if she comes over and she doesn't see it in your room, she's gonna be upset.
It reminds me of I would sometimes sleep at my cousin's house, and she had like a real ventriloquist dummy on top of her bookshelf. And I was just like, no, 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 no. We need to like put that somewhere where there's a lock.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, there's definitely that it's a bad choice. But I did appreciate, and this is sort of a, I think it's a little wink, but all of the Star Wars merch that's in
yeah,
his room, which I think, in part it's, a boy in the 80s. It's just,
it was
on
my
brand for
bedroom.
him. But also famously, Spielberg is good buds with George Lucas, so probably
Yeah,
also a little nod to his friend. But
sure.
Robbie very smartly uses his Chewbacca jacket to throw over the clown, and I was like, that's a good use of your Chewie starter jacket.
It is. Then there's Carol Ann, the, as you said, preternaturally blonde child of, I think there's numerous sort of creepy quotes of Steven Spielberg being like, I wanted to find a child who was the most innocent angelic child in the world, a child that any mother would want.
Yeah, I mean, we could get to it later, but she gave me the willies.
Oh, definitely. Apparently one of the original choices was Drew Barrymore, but she was not angelic enough. Anyhow, he picked her for ET instead.
Yeah, she's a little more like spunky.
Yeah,
So it was a
I
good
prefer Gertie.
casting choice.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm pro Gertie, anti Carol Ann.
Well, I will say she is well cast for this. My personal willies aside, she does come off very like cool as a cucumber with all of the very frightening things that are happening in this house.
It's true. And it is, there's like a childlike wonder. Like there's that initial scene where she's talking to the TV and sort of having like a one sided conversation, like answering questions. That is super creepy.
It's so creepy.
And it's
Yeah.
sort of also understandable why she's just like, she's like a little kid, and like someone's asking her questions and she's, happily answering them, not sort of aware of how weird it is.
Yeah. So let's get into a few of the scares in this movie. Um, so I think there's the initial scene where kind of like a little hand comes out of the TV screen, which all of the stuff where there's kind of like a tentacle of light wasn't scary to me.
Right.
That it was just sort of like, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't know. So that that didn't really freak me out. I think probably the next big one is when the tree came in and grabbed Robbie.
Sure.
Um, and so, fun fact about that, apparently that was shot in reverse. So the tree
Oh,
more spit him out, is the way that they filmed it, and then they played it back. But that also, I think I might have like done a little jump, but it wasn't, you know, uh, shots, no shots at the 1982 special effects, but it does look kind of like a theme park ride.
yeah.
Um, it wasn't super scary.
I think it's scarier when like right after that, when he's getting like sucked into the tree.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of it was well done. It like looks scary.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
was not scared at all because I'm
Well,
strong.
he just like got all bloody, and then he has like a skinned nose for the rest of the movie. That
Yeah.
looked painful.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. And then Carol Ann gets sucked into the closet. There's
Which is a metaphor for homosexuality, obviously.
yeah, she got lesbianized. And then, there's the part where valuables rain from the ceiling.
Oh,
Not
right.
scary either.
Yeah.
100-year-old locket or something, and then she's like, oh, this watch is a few months old.
Well,
um,
I didn't get that at all when I was a kid, or even seeing it later teenager, or I've seen this movie a bunch of times actually. And it was only now that I'm like, oh, those were all the valuables of the dead people who were buried.
yes. So, oh yeah. So a couple other ones in between. So there's the oozing steak that's slithering across the counter, which was gross. And then it sort of just bubbles up, and then he sees whatever he was eating is
He
on the
was eating a
floor, or a
chicken.
chicken wing.
No, it was a chicken drumstick, which is if you are eating something out of a refrigerator in a movie in the 80s, it will have to be a cold chicken drumstick that you hold in your mouth while looking for other
Yeah.
things. It was all
Yeah.
pretty.
So he drops that, and then he looks, and there's maggots all over it, which was very gross. I hate
Right.
maggots. And then from there is the grossest scene in the movie, which didn't scare me. I think I did probably hide my face a little bit just because it was so gross. But it's where he basically tears his face off in the mirror in the bathroom. And fun fact about this, that is Steven Spielberg doing the actual face gouging in that scene. But yeah, that was disgusting.
Yeah, that was Marty the steak guy.
Yes, who wimps out because then the um, Dr. Lesh, who I love Dr. Lesh. She should maybe be Dr. Lush because she likes to tip him back.
Oh yeah,
she's going after that flask, and then Diane is like, we're all out of booze, sorry. But so Marty, after that first day, he's like, I'm not going back there, which I can't say I totally blame him.
Well, he got bit by the beast.
Yeah, by it looked like some kind of like a hammerhead shark bit him or something. It was weird. There's a lot of gross stuff in this movie, like the face gouging, which spoiler alert, was just a hallucination. His face was fine. And then the big scare, the clown. Now I had a pretty big reaction to this. The clown is gone. No. Don't look under there. Don't look under there. Oh, there's nothing there. Oh my god. Holy shit. She looks hot in that little jersey.
And Finn comes to the rescue.
Oh, are you worried about me? Yeah. So I had a pretty big reaction to that. I definitely was fooled by the whole, I was really anxious when he looked over the second side of the bed.
Right.
And they totally tricked me with that, where, there was nothing there, and I kind of was like, oh, nothing's there. And then the clown is there when he sits back up, and it strangles him.
Yeah.
Oof.
Comparing and contrasting this to Friday the 13th, this was like a movie. This is a movie that's like kind of running on all cylinders. It's doing like all of these Spielbergian things, as well as just like well crafted scares where there's like building tension, and there's like almost sometimes it is a little formulaic, but it works. It's like everything they do is like psychology 101, getting people scared of things, like the counting after the lightning. These are all like these sort of like really well crafted devices to make you apprehensive and like, ready for something, and then you get the false scare, and then you get the real scare.
Right. Um, and so, and then, but at least they blessed us with, after that terrifying clown scene, they cut directly to Diane in the bedroom in a like little jersey and undies.
Yeah.
And then the ghost basically like keeps like lifting her jersey up and like scooting her up the walls. And I was like, this ghost is horny,
It's the
because
Hungry
it is
Ghost.
definitely trying to get into, into her knickers and under her top and everything. But a very leggy movie.
It was.
um
And not
yeah.
very the ghost didn't seem to be angry about sex or like killing people for sex.
No, it's no Jason.
No.
Yeah.
Although we do get, similarly to Friday the 13th, these are bad people because they're smoking grass in the beginning.
Oh yes, I actually was like, oh nice, they're like totally just getting stoned. um you know and they had very funny high reactions to everything. But
Yeah. It kind of reminded me of I'm sure a lot of people make this comparison. It kind of reminded me of Eyes Wide Shut.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
um Commitment and titties and all that. So I think now that we've talked through some of the scares, maybe we can segue into, why'd you do that?
Well, if we can segue from what we're talking about a few minutes ago, my number one, why'd you do that, has to be Marty, the parapsychologist, is in this house where he is now seeing ghosts, which he has studied, I'm guessing, many years of his life and never seen like this kind of activity. Wakes up or doesn't go to sleep. He's in the middle of the night. He goes to this stranger's kitchen and he starts eating a chicken leg. Sure, okay, eat a chicken leg. That makes sense. He gets out a raw steak and puts it on the counter. And what was he going to cook? A a decent sized steak
Like a T-bone, yeah.
in the middle of the
um
night.
Maybe he was gonna put that on his giant bite to, like in movies. Well, usually that's a black eye, right? You put a steak on a black eye, but I don't know. I think I'm giving him a lot of latitude here. Yes, I also did wonder that. Like, why is there? And it's not on a cutting board or a plate. He just slapped it on the counter.
No, I mean, he's breaking a number of kitchen rules, OSHA regulations. I have a lot of questions for
Yeah.
Marty. All right, what was your, why'd you do that?
So my number one, which is more, a question I think for the culture at large, but are blonde children inherently creepy? And I think so. I have some personal experience with this. I went to Denmark a few years ago, to Copenhagen, and it's a very blonde country.
Oh
But
yeah.
as soon as I got off the plane and was coming out through security, there was a gaggle of small blonde children waiting for some family member, and it really, gave me the willies. They seem like perfectly fine children, but just like a whole like little four small white blonde children was very frightening to me. And Carol Ann is kind of creepy.
She is. She's got that sort of Children of the Corn look. I personally find children creepy in general, but she
Fair
was
enough.
specifically so. Like, she seems like the kind of child, if you were at a party, she would just stare at you like until you're uncomfortable.
Yes. And it's this very calm demeanor through all of this totally batshit chaos that's
Right.
happening in her house. Um, yeah. So that's my number one. What's your number two?
So your daughter has disappeared. You're pretty sure it's ghosts. Maybe she's in the TV. I don't know. You don't call the police. Not only do you not call the police, you don't call the police for like what seemed like maybe weeks, at least 1 week. Because when they talk to the parapsychologist, he's got like a 5 o'clock shadow, and he's like now a chain smoker. And she's like, Dr. Lash is like, did you call the police? And he's like, oh, no, 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 no. My daughter is missing, and I did not call the police.
Well, to to play devil's advocate here, what exactly are you gonna tell the police? Like, a portal opened up in my closet, the tree grabbed my son, and you know.
Even if you just said, listen, my daughter's gone. I don't know what happened to her.
Also, I honestly, I just think the Freelands are a cab. You know.
Fair. Fair. I mean, there are other. The problem is we weren't at a point, nor are we now at a point where other infrastructural changes have happened, where there are um, a lot of. I mean, they didn't call anybody. They didn't call a child protective services, a
Right. Well, the other thing here too, though, that we have to remember is that Cuesta Verde, he is heavily invested in this development going well. Having the cops show up, having a whole fuss around your
but
house,
it's your
it's going to make
daughter.
property values go down.
Wow.
You know,
Okay.
just
Capitalism,
playing
man.
devil's advocate there.
All right. What's up next?
So my number two, and who is Stephanie's character of the movie, is what's up with Ludo, the construction dude, who is just sort of, like I said, Diane's on first name basis with him. She's kind of like, oh, Ludo, after he is hanging inside through their very large kitchen windows. He's doing construction in the backyard on the pool. And he's just kind of leaning in the window. He's like stirring the sauce on the stove. He's drinking her
I
coffee.
feel like he was like dipping a piece of bread in it, maybe.
Yeah, he's just like sampling the sauce. And then he wants to sample the daughter's sauce and he's, hitting on her. So what's up with this guy? But all that being said, kind of liked him. He was kind
Sure.
of funny. So that's my number two.
Number three, similar to number two. So you come home from work, you've had a hard day. Your wife is in the kitchen with your daughter. There's a bunch of markings on the floor, and she shows you this chair moving across the floor. Then she shows you your daughter moving across the floor. Now, that is the point where I say, we're going to go stay in a hotel. Or possibly,
Yes.
thinking about it some more, we're going to go stay in one of the other many houses I have keys to.
Right.
We're
Yeah,
going to
because he's like
stay
touring people around and everything.
we're going to stay literally anywhere on earth except for this house.
So my number three is, this about me, Doc. I think anyone who follows my social media knows this. I'm a bath lover. I love to take baths. I take them several times a week. It's one of my favorite ways to relax. It's even in loud ass Brooklyn, it's my little sanctuary. But how the hell did Diane take a relaxing bath? She looks very relaxed. After she went into a portal to the afterlife, she came out covered in, strawberry jam, clutching her daughter. She gets thrown around up the ceiling, down the wall, and yet she's just like, you know what? I need to take a bath in this house one last time.
I'm gonna go for a shower after that myself. I mean, I do enjoy bath. I'm more of a shower guy, but after that, nice hot shower, preferably somewhere else. If I do take a bath, it would be in a hotel. But are there no hotels? Well, there's a motel
A
that they go to
Holiday
at the
Inn,
end.
yeah.
We asked this before. Why didn't that kid get rid of the scary ass clown? And maybe you're scared of it before, and you sort of rationalize it, even though you're a little kid. You're like, all right, well, this is just a clown. It's not going to kill me. But then when other things in your house start coming to life, at that point you might want to say, hey dad, can we take this into a dumpster and light it on fire twice?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like I said, even if it's a scenario where, like, oh, your relative, your older relative who never sees you and doesn't really understand what they should buy for children got you this, and if we get rid of it, they'll feel sad. You can still shove it in a closet until they
Where
come over
would
to
you even
visit.
buy that? In a Stephen King highway shop?
You know, having grown up in the Midwest, this sort of thing loves to live in antique shops. Um, Antique shops are very scary places for children in the Midwest because there are lots of just creepy ass clowns and dolls like that. They should set a horror movie in an antique shop in the Midwest. I'll
I
write the
mean,
screenplay.
they did, but yeah.
They did? See? Shows what I know about horror movies. Final question. You know, we can lighten things up from here. And Jack, as a former denizen of the 80s, maybe you can answer this. Did TV remotes really interfere across homes where the person in the home next to you would be changing the channel on your TV?
You know, I've heard of this but never seen it. So my answer is maybe. I don't know.
Also, I think that remote had like two buttons. It was
Yeah,
just because they were kind of like clicking it at each other. They had a fight where they're just like
yeah, just
clicking the
clicking.
remote at each other.
Yeah, when I was a
Because,
kid, I was the remote. My mother
right.
would smack me on the head and say, "Change the channel."
Yeah, we had a TV at one point that had like the dial and it
Yeah.
had like 7 channels on it. I never had that kind of old school 80s remote. We just went from dial to the regular remote
Well, I
in the
remember our
90s.
first VCR actually had a remote that was wired. It had a long wire that reached from the VCR to like the couch.
Nice.
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 All right, movie trivia. So we've gone through the death and dismemberment of most of the cast. The word poltergeist is German for noisy ghost.
Nice.
Okay.
It was kind of noisy.
Yeah, that whole, as somewhat of a occult, a person who studies the occult, not to say I am a mystic or wizard, but I have read Wikipedia. And
Wikipedia.
yeah, the whole description of a haunting versus a poltergeist made very little sense. And the way Dr. Lash explained it made less sense. All right. Well, we need to jump into the thing that we've skipped altogether. The best part of the movie, in my opinion, the diva, the queen, Tangina, a name that will live in infamy.
She is amazing. Also, not gonna lie, going into this, seeing the cast list, fully thought her name was Tangina. So, relieved that that's not the case. Um, but yes, Zelda Rubinstein killing it on every level. Just the way she walked in, and then she sort of clutched her hands to her chest, and she, sassed them, saying like, "Stay back, you're messing with my vibes." And then she dramatically turns and ascends the staircase.
And the
Um,
sunglasses, you can't
oh my god, the
can't.
sunglasses are unbeatable. Like, are you kidding me? I need to find those. I bet someone has a replica on Etsy. I'll drop it in the show notes if I find it. But yes, Tangina is amazing. And I also she had great comedic timing at that point when the light is blasting out of the closet. Diane is there and she's hysterical, and Tangina is kind of like, I have to go in. And then Diane's like, no, I do. And Tangina's like, you've never done this before. And Diane's like, neither have you. And then there's like a beat, and then Tangina's like, you're right. You should go. I chuckled. That was a great little like moment of levity in this very intense movie. Well, yeah, she's amazing. I like so I know from looking up some movie facts that she filmed all of her scenes in 6 days,
Right.
um, and yeah, just got it done.
She apparently tried out a bunch of times too. She was not like the first pick, but she is like she's a medium of some kind, from what I understand, some sort of psychic, or at least has some knowledge of that, and that was sort of gave her the leg up. At the end, with her, she turns around, she looks at the camera of the uh, parapsychologists, and her hair's all messy, and she just does the this house is clean.
Yes. And then mic drop, I'm out of here.
Right. Which also, so, okay, this lady saves her daughter. She says this house is clean. Great. So they sleep there that night.
Yes. And that's when she takes the bath and,
Right.
the whole thing. I don't know that I can really recommend Tangina's services.
Listen, they hired her to get their daughter back, and she did. I will, my only critique of her services is the house was not clean.
Yeah. No.
In spiritually or physically, it was a mess.
Yeah, it was dirty as hell. There was a lot of rumors and, differing accounts that I read online about, who really directed this movie. There were some people involved that were very adamant that Toby Hooper did. There were other folks that were like, no, this is basically Spielberg's baby. It sounds like it's probably a hybrid of the two. Basically, at the time, um, Spielberg was directing E.T. and was contractually not able to, he was not allowed to direct another movie at the same time.
He also wrote this movie, wrote the story of this movie, wrote the screenplay of this, co-wrote the screenplay of this movie, and produced it. And so, like, that is a big part of why his fingerprints all over it. And it looks like a Spielberg film, and like it looks like an Amblin Entertainment film, because a lot of them have a sort of similar vibe.
Right.
And like, if you've ever
Yeah.
seen Amazing Stories, the TV show that they did, it's kind of like a Twilight Zone-y, anthology series, but a lot of them had this similar sort of horror or mystery in bright daylight. Like this movie, nobody dies.
Yeah. Well, except the poor parakeet, but yes. So there's a lot of different accounts. Like I know the prop master said when he was creating that oozing steak, basically he had to go through a bunch of revisions and, Spielberg didn't like any of them. So at a certain point, he was like, I decided I have to get the sign off of Spielberg before I call anything done because he is, very present on set. But I think it's probably just a big collaboration. He was just kind of a very present producer, but that Toby Hooper directed.
Have you seen any of Hooper's work? Did you see
I don't believe so.
Chainsaw Massacre? Or
No.
because it has such a different vibe, and it's a much more indie sort of film. All right, reactions.
All right, the
Countdown.
final word on this movie. So I thought it was, it was well made. It looked beautiful. The special effects were actually pretty good. That scary skeleton at the end was slightly hokey, but it's 1982. And overall, I would say this is very like medium scary. I jumped a lot during that clown attack. So I'm giving it a 5 out of 10 on the scare factor. And then for entertainment factor, I will say, my focus lagged a little bit. But I'm giving it a 6 out of 10 for the entertainment factor. I stayed engaged most of the time. There are a few slow stretches, but and not very funny. It didn't have the same kind of camp factor as something like Friday the 13th, which has a lot of charm to it. So 6 out of 10 for entertainment, 5 out of 10 for scares. What about you?
I liked it. I thought it was a good movie, and it had a good combination of like nostalgia for my growing up. When I was a kid, the clown definitely gave me nightmares. there's a slickness to the whole movie and a sort of a charm. And I forgot about that last scene, which is like super well known. Of their, I think the last maybe 4 minutes of the movie don't have any speaking at all. And they go to the motel and they all just sort of like, they're all tired. And then they close the door opens up again, and they push out the TV into the.
Yeah, I was like, they're never getting another TV in their house ever again.
That was brilliant. So
Yeah.
scary, 4 out of 10. Entertainment, 7 out of 10.
Nice. So those are our thoughts on Poltergeist. Tune in next time. We will be talking about She Dies Tomorrow, a psychological horror film by Amy Seimetz, one of my favorite directors working right now. It actually came out 2020 this year, just recently.
So yeah, we're moving up, what, 30 years?
Yeah, moving, from the 80s to literally a month ago. So
The roaring 20s.
and also rate and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get podcasts. 5 stars, and we'll see you next week.
And if you have any questions for us, you can tap us on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever people talk to each other. We're there.
Yes, on Twitter we are Horrible Pod, and on Instagram we're The Horrible Idea. And you can follow us there, send us questions, send us comments, please only nice ones. And we'll see you next week.
Ciao.